attention to the news like I have, then you already know. B better have my money. It's exactly what Johnny Depp is saying to Amber Heard. Let me tell you something. About Johnny Depp. Now, anytime you have people that are suing for defamation, all right, then more than likely those people have lawyers, and the lawyers have done the research on whether or not the person actually has a case, or if it's some bullcorn, or if it's like you're not going to win because you actually did that stuff. And it is your duty as a lawyer to tell your client, whether they want to hear it or not, that they don't have a case. It is not the duty of the lawyer to just go ahead and take that retainer knowing full well they're not going to win. Knowing full well that they will not be able to prove the elements of defamation. You know what? So hold on, let me do this. Let me do a I guess I can charge this up on the break. But for some reason my runner show is not coming in the right way. But I'm going to get started because you know what? I wrote the runner show. So hey, it shouldn't be hard for me to get it running again. Okay, here we go. Oh yeah, my headphones are working. Here we go. Tune in for the top. You know what? I just love my intro. It's like super dope. It makes me feel like I'm about to tune into the Wendy Williams show. You know I love me some Wendy. Best of luck to you out there, Wendy. I'm going to be praying for you to get your swagger back. Yeah. It doesn't have my runner show in the order. So what's the first runner show order that you have? Amber Heard. This is not optimal. All right, here we go. Hello and happy Thursday, everybody. Happy June the 2nd to you. This is the month of the Gemini birthdays. My baby sister, I guess she's not a baby anymore now that she is the MUD board representative out there in MUD District 118 out in Fort Bend County, Nicole Davis. You know, Nicole Roberts. She's going to be turning on June the 9th. Happy birthday, shout out, sister. And happy birthday, shout out to my mentee and wonderful campaign contributor on my fantastic run for the United States Congress representing District 22 when I was zoned there before I was basically zoned out and zoned into the Black District. Come on now. Won't he do it? So happy birthday out there to Maya Rachel and to anybody else who has birthdays. Happy belated birthday. I mean, I keep on wishing my bestie happy birthday, Shanidria, 4,500 times like y'all haven't already heard before. It's like, it's not even in the same birthday month that I'm still shouting her out. Anyway, this is going to be a great show right now. If you have been turning on the news, and if you are a black person who has been watching the news and you've been seeing all of the coverage about the war in Ukraine, and now you are being bombarded with like minute by minute, hour by hour, second by second coverage of the Queen's Jubilee celebrating her 70th year of reign over the black people who have been colonized by the Queen of England and the terrorism that she has been able to inflict from her throne on the people of Aruba, on the people of the other countries that she has been able to rape and pillage from for over 100 years. Let me tell you something. She has been the single pivotal role on keeping her knee on the necks of black people across the world. She has been the reason why William and Kate and their 3 children will never have to work a day in their lives. She has been the reason why Prince Charles and his concubine hoe turned into a housewife, turned into the future Duchess of England, Camilla Parker Bowles, who was the mistress sleeping with Prince Charles while he was married to Diana. And he was actually even sleeping with that harlot Camilla Parker Bowles while he was dating Diana before they were even betrothed. So let me tell you, today will not be a day of jubilation to celebrate the 70 years of tyranny that the Queen of England has inflicted on the colonized nations that she has taken over. Today will be a day of celebrating what black people should be made aware of and about what race means to black people in America. And this will be the day to where you will be able to hear from the media. I'm calling this the black arm of the media, y'all. Now, if you're a white person out there that loves to listen to me, I'm so glad that you're here too. There's something that you need to learn. I'm going to give you the Black American perspective on exactly why we are not African Americans. No, we are not. Because I have to say to those Africans out there, now, you know, I love you all of my Nigerian braiders, all of my Nigerian friends. I love you all. But let me tell you something. This is the day where we need to probably stop calling ourselves African Americans, because guess what? We were colonized, okay? And even though black people for 460 years have been oppressed by white domination in the United States of America, and they're celebrating 70 years of rule from Queen Elizabeth with her Diamond Jubilee. And let me tell you something. It's a big deal out there, because guess what? In 2012, I actually was in London during the Queen's Jubilee celebrating that 60-year celebration. Yes, I was there for my 40th birthday trip when I took 50 people out there to celebrate my 40th birthday. And this time we're going to Mexico to celebrate my 50th birthday. So my birthday always falls in lines with the Queen's Jubilee celebration. So when you're thinking about it, when you're thinking about exactly what this means, when you are looking at the royal family, you're basically looking at an homage for all of the white people out there in England being able to celebrate their ability to surpass what the South Africans had to endure in apartheid. See, because remember when you had over there in Germany for a while, when they were saying, tear down that wall. For those of you who are millennials, you weren't even alive then. But when I was in high school, right, the year that I was graduating in 1990, when I was graduating from high school, in that 1989 season, burgeoning on 1990, is exactly when Gorbachev and all of the Soviet leaders said we were going to go ahead and tear down that wall. And that is what started the beginning of the Cold War. That's when, you know, you had the Reaganomics that was taken over to make sure that black people stayed all the way at the bottom of the economic classes in the United States of America. So when you have a celebration going on right now in over there in London, and you have black Meghan Markle, yeah, y'all say she's biracial, but America made it so that if you had just one drop of black blood in you, you were going to be considered black. So black Meghan Markle, now they said earlier this morning when I was watching just a little bit of it, that Meghan and Harry will not be able to walk out on to the balcony to wave at all the good white people, that because of their standing, they don't get to go out on the balcony. The balcony is reserved for the Queen. The balcony is reserved for Charles and the whore Camilla, and the balcony is reserved for William and Kate, okay, and their 3 little children. So you have the pecking order that has been put in place to make sure the little black girl with the edges from Compton does not go ahead and make an appearance, okay? So when you think about what they're celebrating on the other side, on the other side of the pond, if you are a black person in America, I need you to go ahead and switch the channel. Go ahead and turn it off. Because if you were up there clapping, oh, she's the queen, she's the queen, she's the queen, well, then you're basically saying hooray to all of the colonialism that has gone across on the backs of black people, and hooray to their ability to not have to work a single day in their life. Hooray to all the people in England that are able to go ahead and continuously keep those black people suppressed. And I'm saying it continuously suppressed because if you notice, now they were able to tear down the wall in Germany. Good. They were able to go ahead and end apartheid in South Africa. Good. They ended slavery in the United States of America. Kind of. Good. But for some reason, they still have a royal family that's been able to colonize all those places. And guess what? The United States has still enslaved the people of St. Thomas and St. John and St. Kitts. All of those colonized areas that the United States took over. They also colonized Puerto Rico, okay? So when you think about those people who are citizens of the United States and they were under colonial rule, but they have no representation. Okay. And now if you think about the 3 framers of the United States Constitution, Thomas Jefferson was one of them. I think it was Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, John Hancock, all those 3, when they got together. The problem is that black people in America feel like just because the slaves were freed, well, you really weren't free if you're a person who is, it's kind of like this. If we celebrate the freedom of slaves based upon what they were able to be granted by Abraham Lincoln, okay? The reason for the freedom of the slaves was specifically to benefit the Union, because the Union needed more people in their military. So being a freed slave was not an act of the social conscience of Abraham Lincoln. That social consciousness only kicked in when he realized the Southerners were going to secede from the Union, and that they were so angry at their inability to continue on with slavery with regard to the new territory that had been acquired by the United States. We're talking about the western area. We're talking about the area of the west of the United States, which were the new areas that were coming in, and there were the decisions that needed to be made, whether or not the new territory was going to be a slave state or a free state. So when the South wanted to go ahead and continue out slavery and push it on to the newly acquired territory, you have to think about it, that was going to then make it a majority slave state country for the United States of America. So the only reason that Abraham Lincoln felt compelled to free the slaves by executive order was because, without regard to any filibustering, without regard to any working on both sides of the aisle, without regard to whether or not the other party would be so upset that they would not be, that it would show that we're not trying to act very friendly, without regard to any of that, when it came down to needing to win a war and needing to have more black bodies that were expendable, more black bodies that could go out on the front line to be those first persons killed so that we could save more of the white bodies. Wars are determined by how many people die. Okay, the war on guns and the war on gun controls is being determined on how many children, how many teenagers die, how many black people, how many white people, how many unarmed people die at the hands of some crazy white person that goes in and shoots up people that they don't even know. So the more the numbers tick up, the more likely it is that there's going to be brought about some type of executive order to make a change. So when you think about the reality, the only reason that the slave folks are free and the only reason I'm able to talk to you right now is because they needed more black bodies on the front lines to go ahead and take that first bullet. Because you all know that historically speaking, I don't know if they're still teaching this in elementary schools today, but if you took any type of black history at your little black schools that you went to, then you learned that the very first bullet that was fired in the Civil War was aimed, and the very first person that was killed, the very first person that laid down his life on the battlefield was a young black boy named Crispus Attucks, who was the ordained little drummer boy that went out there and started the Civil War. Yes, he did. Marching out there with his navy blue Union Army uniform on and his little drum out there saying, boom, 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 it's time to start this war. He caught the first bullet. So let me tell you this. The reality is, ladies and gentlemen, in America, unless black folks are ready to just die for the purposes of whatever white folks are fighting for, then there's really no end for the black people on the other side. There's no reason for white people to do anything for the benefit of black people, because race, as we know it, is exactly what was created to allow white people a reason to enslave black people. Race is not some term that came from the Bible. Race is not something that they wrote about in the Quran. Race is not talked about anywhere in the Torah. I don't know what other books they got running these other religions, but when you think about it, race didn't have anything to do with it except anything other than slavery. Because let me tell you something. When Pope Pius was out there back in the day, you may not even know who Pope Pius was, but when Pope Pius was out there back in the day talking about, let me tell you something, good white people, good lovers of God and Jesus Christ, the followers, if you want to be enriched, then you need to own slaves. Do you hear me? When the Pope is telling all the good white folks that are following Jesus way back then in the 1500s that they need to own slaves because it's biblical, and that basically opened up the floodgates for all of the people across England and for the Queen and King to go ahead and say, oh, yes, no, let's go across and take our ships across the territories and go to Africa. And let's go see exactly, now that we have been giving license to enslave black people, let's go get the Negro, because the Pope already said that the black people are not meant to do anything other than serve the white people, Europeans. Do you hear me? So that is what basically started the run on the European-looking countries on the coastal parts of Africa. That is why you see on the southern tip of Africa, when you go to the DC Museum, when you see the history of black Americans and the history of slavery, blah, 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 you'll see that those coastal countries in Africa are exactly where the slaves were brought. You will see that England, Spain, France, the now United States, all of those countries raped and pillaged African slaves and brought them out there for their own gain. And they were doing it. Thank you, Jesus Christ, for blessing us with more and more slaves. Do you hear me? So that's also how in the United States of America, they were able to tell the black people that it is your job to be a slave. Don't be mad. Don't take up arms. Don't feel like you need to rebel against your captors. Don't feel like there's anything wrong when the white people are beating you with whips and chains and taking away your language, taking away your religion, taking away your ability to own property, basically pulling you out here and telling you you are not able to have any more than 3 of you together. And that if there was any group of 6 black people, there must be a white person in there so that white person can go back and tell the other white people to make sure that they tell on y'all so y'all don't have a way to go ahead and mingle up and come up with a plan to unslave yourselves and to break free of the slavery chains of racism put out there by the white people in England and blessed by the Pope at the time. So if you're here today to listen to my show to talk about the Queen's Jubilee, we're not going to talk about that from the white perspective. We're going to talk about that from the perspective of the effects on black people that the colonialism of England had on black people across the world. And to this day, that's the same reason that across the globe, black people on every single continent of this globe, black people are at the bottom of the pecking order. Black people have been made to look inhuman. It's been written in our Constitution. In the Dred Scott decision, the Supreme Court of the United States made a determination that black people were not humans, that black people were basically chattel, which is basically a good that can be passed back and forth in commercial instances. So when you think of yourself as property, then that means you belong to someone. They're saying you don't belong to God, you belong to white people. So today is going to be a show where you're going to be enlightened as to why we are not African Americans. Because guess what, black folks? I'm sorry. African people over here in the United States, they look down on black Americans. Yes, they do. Yes, they don't mind doing our cornrows. Yes, they don't mind hanging out with us. Yes, they don't mind coming to the United States and pillaging everything that they can from the white economy. Because black people in Africa, those people in Africa, guess what? As huge as the continent of Africa is, having more richness that God gave to any other country. Africa is the wealthiest continent on the planet. Why do you think that all the diamond mines have been raped and pillaged by De Beers, the Europeans? Why do you think that they have been able to enslave Africans right there in South Africa when you have apartheid? Why do you think that it has been beneficial? Why do you think they took the people from Africa to go ahead and build up all the countries around them? They stole the Africans. The reason why you need to stop calling yourself African American is because guess what, black people in America? The Africans watched for 400 years. They watched for 400 years. They watched black people from Africa be enslaved in the United States of America. They didn't send any ships over here to save black folks. They didn't send anybody with bayonets over here. Guess what? The enslavement of black people basically was okay by the Africans. Yes, it was okay by default by their very inaction in trying to come over here and send some warships to come and save black people from what they had to endure. They watched for 100, 200, 300, 460 years, okay? Africans didn't do nothing for the folks over here, but you have black Americans over here talking about, let's help the people in apartheid. We got to free the South Africans. Let me tell you something about black folks over here. Black people in America, black people are natives. Black people were here, okay, before the Indians. Do you hear me? The black man is the original man. So if the black man is the original man, that would mean that the black man is the firstborn son of God. Come on now. And on that note, I'm going to go ahead and give you a break so you can go ahead and absorb all that I just said to you. The black people are the chosen people. The black man being the original man. The black man is the firstborn son of God. Do you hear me? So I got a whole lot I'm going to teach to you today. Be ready. Be ready. You ain't going to be ready. Did you eat your Wheaties this morning? If you didn't, I'm all the Wheaties that you going to need because I'm about to enlighten you. I'm about to give you something on the Queen's Jubilee celebration, baby. This is coming out to all of you who are the firstborn, the chosen people of God, the black people. I'll be back in just a minute. Woo, woo, woo. Yes, I did. You know, I have to go ahead and tell you all. You know, in all of this talk and all this hullabaloo about what black people don't have, what we don't get, blah, blah, blah. Well, when white Europeans have to have the Pope give them license to rape and pillage Africa, and then as grand and as large and as plentiful and as wealthy as the continent of Africa is, with all of their black countries divided up, with all of these black people, they didn't send any warships over here to Europe to go ahead and rescue us. No. As a matter of fact, they enslaved black folks too. They were selling off some of the people in those coastal African towns to be slaves in Spain, slaves in England, slaves in the United States. So don't be fooled, black Americans. You are on your own. Yes, you are. So, but it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Because what I'm going to tell you today is very simple. Once you start realizing that black people are the chosen people, and once you start realizing that your position in the United States is here by design, you want to wonder why black people don't have reparations? I'm going to tell you that with this show. Does it ever concern you that the Jewish people received reparations from Germany? Jewish people received reparations here in the United States. Any of the Asian people, Chinese, anybody from in the Asian descent received reparations right here in the United States from the concentration camps that were used right after the Vietnam War, right after World War II. Reparations were given to every class of people that were underserved or treated harmfully by the United States of America, except for black people. It has been written into the United States Constitution. Let me tell you something. The Indians, I'm not calling them Native Americans because black people were here first. Okay, let's just go ahead and tell that truth. Black people were here on this earth first. So that means black people are native to the earth. Black people are the original people. And if all other people came from black people, say it ain't so. Ask the anthropologists. Say it ain't so. Ask the historians. Say it ain't so. Ask the scientists. Black people were the first people, so that from all other people they came from the blacks. So if you got one drop of black blood, let me tell you something. That means you're chosen. You're part of the chosen people. I'm trying to tell you this. I'm trying to educate you so that you can understand the position that we're in. Stop worrying about all these fake black politicians talking about what they gonna do, the change they gonna bring. It's not designed for them to bring change. Don't you understand that for those idiots out there that are saying, well, I don't know. Okay, 45 seconds to go back on. Okay.
Did it ever pop up?
No, the running show didn't pop up. Try to send it to me one more time. So for all of those black people out there that don't understand why it seems like we're not moving anywhere, why we're not having any progress, is because we were not designed to have any progress. It was not the grand scheme for the United States to give black people anything. I'm going to tell you how white people were systematically able to make, is another song? Yeah. And able to ensure that black people stayed at the bottom. Do you understand that? Let me tell you something. In the past year and 10 months since President Biden has been the president, there have been 16 million immigrants that have entered the United States. 16 million immigrants. Let me tell you why that's important. Immigration matters because immigration lets us know exactly the amount of power that you have when it comes to the government. In the United States, black people, because of the way we were brought here, see, immigrants came here because they want to find hope. They want to find a new job. They want to be able to find success and give something to go back to their countries with. They have their own identity. Their loyalty is to their home country because they're coming to the United States for a better life. But they're coming for a better life on the backs of black people. Don't you understand? So when they come over here with their immigration, they automatically receive a handout for free. Black people didn't get the 40 acres and a mule. And if you don't understand why they didn't get it, it was simply because the very next president, I believe that was Andrew Johnson, right after Abraham Lincoln's assassination, he deleted by executive order The reparation of 40 acres and a mule that was supposed to go to black folks. So basically, if you were one of the 17 people that was around, that was a slave at the time, and you were like, oh yes, I'm gonna get my 40 acres and a mule, by the time Abraham Lincoln was assassinated and that white racist vice president was elevated, he undid everything because yes, he was a Southerner. Do you hear me? He undid all of that. So don't be fooled. The reason why you didn't get your reparations is because even after that elimination of the 40 acres and a mule, that was by decree. It was a treaty. It was by decree. Even the Native Americans, those Indians, and I'm going to call them Indians, so all you natives out there, you're not native. The Indians that were here, you know, the Choctaw, the Cherokee, the Sequoias, all of them, they were enslaving black people. Do you hear me? They had their own slaves. Did you not think that something had to be going on with those Indians while everybody else was fighting the Civil War? The Indians didn't just disappear. They were here too. But guess what? They were fighting on the side of the Southerners, baby. And when the war was ended and when, let me go ahead. Let me have to go back home because I'm dropping too much knowledge. And I think the people out there in radio land and on the Waze and the TuneIn app, they need to be able to hear this knowledge because this is something that they need to know. See, this is the advantage that you have by listening to me on the outtake because you get all this knowledge dropping. Go ahead and minimize that song. Go ahead and reduce it down. Go ahead and fade her out. Okay, so I want everybody here to be better have my money. So I'm gonna pause this point and I'm gonna go back to the top T in celebrity news. We're gonna talk a second about Amber Heard and dumb butt Jada Pinkett. You know I can't stand her. She's sitting up here looking like an Ewok. You know what? Yeah. It's 2 in the morning and it's time to spill the tea. Here we go. Oh, my sparkling water. Can you grab my sparkling water out of my cart? I'm hot.
You are.
All right, everybody, we're back now. You know, I jumped too far into the race issue because that's what we're going to be talking about today. But let me go ahead and give you like five or 6 minutes on what's been going on in celebrity news. You heard Rihanna say, "B better have my money." Let me tell you why. Because Amber Heard got her butt whacked at the jury verdict yesterday. It looks like she don't even have 15 million. Let me tell you something. If you ain't got the money in the bank, don't have your mouth writing no checks that your bank account can't cash. Amber Heard is the victim of bad lawyers. And let me tell you, it wasn't about their legal prowess in the courtroom. No, bad lawyers, because sometimes lawyers get celebrity clients and they find themselves doing whatever the client wants them to do, even though they know it's stupid and dumb and ridiculous and foolish and it's something that's going to cause them to lose. But when those billable hours are stacking up and up and up and up, like if you want to talk to me, you got to come up with $450 an hour. That works out to $87.75 if you're talking to me for 15 minutes. So I'm expensive. So that means if these lawyers in the Amber Heard Johnny Depp trial were like on both sides that these are ballers, then the lawyers really don't care out there in LA whether or not they're going to be able to represent you well so that you can win. Because once you tell that celebrity, like, look, there's no case here, they don't always want to hear it. Somebody be like, you're not going to be able to win this. Well, I don't care. I just want to stick it to it. I just want to let the people decide. Well, the people going to decide and the law's going to decide too. Because the people have spoken. Because Amber Heard has to pay $15 million. You know, she has to post a $10 million cash bond if she wants to appeal. I don't know if she has that $7 million that she won in her judgment against Johnny Depp over there in wacko England. You know, she won $7 million against Johnny from the good people of England who said write that check. And then her butt got up there and lied like she was going to donate all that money to charity. And then she had to testify in this case up there in Virginia, in the Commonwealth, to tell the people that she really didn't donate any of the money to charity. Not a single dollar went to charity. So, you know, Amber Heard with her old lying butt, yep, she's got to pay the money. Johnny Depp, good for you. Because let me tell you something. When you got to spend the money on legal fees. Now, number one, I should know that. I'm not only a lawyer, but I've been sued. And what do? I spank that ass. Yes, I said ASS. Yes, I had to go ahead and say it because there's no other way to say it. I spanked the ass of the person who sued me for defamation, took that bitch all the way up to the Court of Appeals and spanked it up there. So I'm just telling you. Me and Johnny Depp, hey, Johnny, I'm sending you a shout out right your way because it feels good to be on the winning team. B better have my money. I'm still waiting on my check from the loser that I stomped on the Court of Appeals. But you know, he probably ain't got it. He's probably just like Amber Heard. Because guess what? I just stomped somebody else a couple of weeks ago. I'm waiting for my money on that too. So mama got checks coming in. But I'm digressing a little bit, but I just have to say, Amber Heard, she didn't listen to her lawyers. This is why she lost. If you all were paying attention to the last days of the trial and the last hours of Amber Heard's testimony, the whole reason that Johnny Depp had to sue her for defamation is because she wrote an op-ed that was published in the Washington Post. I don't know if it was in the paper post or if it was in the .com post, whatever it was, talking about from a public figure who was the victim of sexual violence, blah, blah, blah. And then she didn't use Johnny Depp's name, but Johnny sued her saying, girl, you know everybody talking about me. You know you're talking about me because I'm the only one you were married to, you simple Simon. And also, he's the one who got her that role in Aquaman. And honestly, ladies and gentlemen, I have seen Aquaman 411 times because, I have little children. And my son Lincoln wanted to watch Aquaman 411 times. But I didn't even realize that was Amber Heard because honestly, she's such a nothing nobody that I didn't even know who she was. Maybe in white America and in white celebrity, she's popular. But I don't know. I don't know if she even has any coins. I don't even know who she is. And I think that she really just wasn't that great in Aquaman. I'm sorry, Amber, but this is not your day. And first of all, when you're being a lesbianics and you're married, you should not be having threesomes with Cara Delevingne and Elon Musk. That's probably why you lost because God said you're not going to be able to hoe out on your husband and then go ahead and lie like he committed sexual violence, put it in the Washington Post, and then try to sue him for $100 million. First of all, Johnny Depp has amassed $650 million. Do you hear me? Johnny Depp has amassed $650 million over the course of just 10 years. And he was fly way back in Edward Scissorhands when Winona Ryder was the star. And then after that, she got caught stealing in the store. And that kind of blacklisted her. So she was a thief. But, I have to just say, good for you, Johnny. You better get that money. Don't you dare let her out of that pan. I ain't letting the dude that owes me my dollars. I ain't letting nobody off. Don't ask me for no settlement. It ain't gonna happen. I'm not settling. Johnny, don't you settle. Make her put up that $10 million bond and move on. Okay, and other dumb news. Now, did y'all see the dumb old Jada Pinkett Smith talking about Will Smith and Chris Rock can reconcile? First of all, Jada, sit your bald-headed butt down. Ain't nobody listening to you. If you wanted to talk anything about a reconciliation or if you wanted to have your 15 minutes of fame, you should have done that 2 weeks ago. Okay, nobody really cares about this stuff anymore. We already saw that Will is out there in India over there doing some pilgrimage or whatever, trying to get his life right. We already know that you're whack. Nobody's listening to your red table talk. Nobody cares about alopecia. All you had to do was go get a wig or a weave, and you only had like 2 little bitty spots of your hair that was missing. Girl, you could have just glued some hair on. Nobody cares. Jada, sit down. Nobody thinks that Will and Chris Rock are gonna have a reconciliation. Black men don't reconcile when somebody's been pip slapped on a worldwide stage. That's what white people do. And I'm sorry, there's nothing that Jada can do to fix what Will Smith did because Jada is the reason that Will just lost his career. Yeah, Jada, you're the cause of all this shenanigans because you're just a harlot. Jada is a whoring wife. So you see these whoring wives? Now let me tell you something. Amber Heard, Camilla Parker Bowles, Jada Pinkett Smith, they're whoring wives. Now, if their husband said it was okay to go ahead and sleep with some other people, and it's okay, I like to watch, or it's okay, whatever kind of kinky, you keep that stuff in your bedroom, because that means your husband, he might have some sexual proclivities, but it's not for everybody else in the world to know. It is not for you to use as a badge to shame your husband because you're just a hater because you're a D-list actress and nobody cared about you, boo. Well, you know what? Move on, Jada. Nobody cares about your red table talk. All we know is that your husband was the main breadwinner. Your husband was the earner. When the earner is not earning anymore, you're not going to be able to have a platform that brings in money. You're not making cash dollars off your red table talk. No, you're not. You're on Facebook. So if you're on Facebook that had to change its name to Meta and who just 2 days ago, the COO of Facebook quit. Resigned. Yes, Sandra quit. She resigned and left Mark Zuckerberg. That lets you know that Facebook is going down in the DM, baby. Ain't nothing happening. So, Jada, it's over. There's nothing that you can do to make us like you. It's a wrap. Maybe you need to go ahead and create a wig line. But since you're trying to live your bald head best life out there, nobody wants to see your bald head, girl. I thought you were like playing a role in Star Wars. But anyway, go put a wig on and then just try to help us forget and stop talking about your husband. Anyway, now we're going to move on to Star Wars for real. Let me tell you something about these racist white folks. White racist people love to come out when they see a black woman doing anything in Hollywood that white people believe should be reserved for a white person. Okay, you don't know what I'm talking about? Well, Star Wars is I don't know the creator of the Star Wars franchise or what the name of that director is. I forgot his name. It's a white guy, kind of chubby. He's got curly hair. He married a black woman, all right? So this sister has been married to this white boy for maybe like 30 years or something like that. They're like super duper Hollywood interracial marriage royalty. Now, she is literally holding it down. Now, it used to be super duper Hollywood interracial royalty with Robert De Niro and his wife, Tookie. But she divorced him, and she's like, no. And but Bobby D got 3 black sons that are like, yes, yes, and more yes. And it's too bad that Sasha and Malia have not hooked up with the De Niro boys, because, baby, let me tell you something. Those brothers are fine and tall. But anyway, so now that they see white America is so upset that the Obi-Wan Kenobi sister, what's her name, Reva, she is the bad sister that stole the movie, and she is the one who saves Obi-Wan Kenobi. And Obi-Wan Kenobi was dull as heck until she got in. And, you know, Moses Ingram is the force that needs us to have her back. Because white America, I'm going to call them Whitey right now. Whitey has come out. They mad, y'all. They put so many racist tweets. White Twitter was going bonkers at this sister holding it down. If y'all don't know who I'm talking about, then y'all need to go ahead and look. If you're looking at my Instagram or my social media on Facebook, y'all see she's a brown sister, kind of looking like Ketanji Brown Jackson, but cuter. But she's the one who makes me want to just go ahead and buy a whole bunch of tickets. She's the one who's holding up the red sword, you know, like Darth Vader has. But you know what? Black Twitter, you guys need to go ahead and unite and get on white Twitter and start having her back. Because it looks like the racists are out there. It's the same way they did it when they had the Hunger Games, on the Hunger Games part 1, when the black girl was representing one of the houses or one of the areas that was, you know, you got to watch the Hunger Games. Anyway, the black girl was the leader of the one of the tribes, and all the white people came out and said, I can't believe that the so-and-so is the N-word. Yeah, they did. You know what? Listen, Twitter and Facebook always allows us to see exactly what white people still think of us. So yes, hail to free speech, because we never want to be jaded or we never want to be confused exactly where our standing is. And so if you're curious as to see exactly why black people can't get a hand up, well, it's because if you look at Twitter and if you look at Facebook, you'll see that they don't like us here and they don't want us here in the first place. Now, I'm going to go ahead and get off that celebrity news and I'm going to talk to you about some more black history. Let me tell you this. I was talking about the Indians. I'm talking about the feather, not the red dot. So when I'm talking about the Indians and how racist they are and how racist they've always been, and I'm also going to tell you Mexicans are racist against black people too. Yeah. They've been, if you look, let me take you from history with the Indians, then I'll bring you up to present day Mexicans, okay? The immigrants who are coming over here, getting stuff for free, not having to pay for it, enrolling their kids in school, not paying any taxes, and want all the rights and privileges of citizens who pay taxes. I'm talking about those Mexicans who don't want to learn English as their first language. I'm talking about those Mexicans who come over here and think that they are entitled to be treated fairly and equally with white people on the backs of black people. Yeah. Mexicans come over here, they come over here illegally, and they expect a handout across the border. Let me tell you something. If the white privilege that they think that they will be able to get some of that white privilege passed down, skipping over black folks, okay? They really believe that just like historically, let me tell you, the Indians, back on the Indians, when we had the Civil War, the Indians were fighting for the South. Do you hear me? Now, here's what happened. When all of the 5 chiefs of the major Indian tribes saw that there were slaves that were making their land, which remember, the Indians were over here with dirt, teepees, and horses. running around here with bow and arrows, talking about some ooh, when they're doing their war cries, but they didn't have any gunpowder. When they saw that the white people were obliterating them, and they saw that the white people had new methods of tilling the soil and growing crops, and they were doing it on the backs of the enslaved Africans that they brought over here, what the white generals did was tell the natives, because remember, America made a pact with the natives, the Indians, that basically says, we're going to steal, kill, rape, and pillage all of you, decimate you down by at least 80%. The last 20% of you, we believe that we can help you become civilized like us good white folks from England. And so what we're going to do is we're going to teach you. You need to own some of these African slaves. So in order for you to be civilized and have the protection of the United States Constitution, okay, it is written in the Constitution that civility is exactly what makes you a citizen. If you're an animal, or if you are 3/4 a man, then you are not able to be civilized because you're chattel. So the 5 heads of the Indian tribes believed the white man was right and said, you know what? We want to be deemed as civilized under the United States Constitution. And since they had the treaty allowing the Indians to keep some of their land and property, and the United States said, we will promise not to take this other stuff if you're civilized. That's why they said, well, we're going to own slaves. And when the Civil War broke out and those Southern generals were like, look here, Indians, we need to fight to keep slavery. And guess what? If you don't keep slaves there, then you're going to have to till your own soil. And all y'all know how to do is make teepees. You still don't know how to make bricks. So you better keep these African slaves so they can make your houses and they can have you walking upright and get off your horses and figure out a way to go ahead and talk like white folks. You know, forget the Choctaw, the Chickasaw, and all the Sequoia. They didn't like black people. They slaved black people. So they decided to take up arms and fight for the South. So when you think about it, if the United States made a pact to be able to give reparations to Indians, okay, way back before the Civil War, and then after the Civil War, do you realize in the Constitution, there was a treaty that once the Civil War was ended, Abraham Lincoln made it very clear. If you were on the side of the South and revolted and seceded from the United States, you are prevented from receiving any of the social benefits awarded by the United States. Do you hear me? Okay, so I'm going to go back a little bit further before the Civil War broke out, just from when the Indians were over here getting their butts kicked by the white folk colonizers. Okay, before the Indians got all their butts kicked, there was a deal that they had their own treaty, that they were promised certain land and they were promised their own reparations because of all the bloodlust of the white folks for killing up everybody and taking their stuff. So what happened? In an effort to go ahead and populate, remember, the United States is over, I believe, 350 million, maybe 450 million acres, okay? At the time when it was being settled, prior to the Civil War and prior to, right after they came away, right after the American Revolution, when they broke away from England, they had a situation where you got all these people dressed up like pilgrims over here. They had all this land. They had basically decimated the Indians, and they had all of this land, and they needed to get a population of people over here in the United States so they can make it plentiful. All right. They needed to work the land and they needed to be able to make money. So what did they do? The framers of the Constitution decided, we will give away land for free to anybody in any country that wants to come over here. When they say that the United States is the land of immigrants, it's true, because that is exactly how the population was filled with the white people, white Europeans from all over the world. Any white settler from anywhere could come to the United States and do a land grab. The land was free. All they had to do was make sure that they worked, they signed up to get the land. You could get 600 acres for free. U.S. soil. You could get 600 acres in some places. They had it to where Thomas Jefferson got 600,000 acres. Do you hear me? He saw all those framers gave themselves hundreds and thousands of free acres of land and used all the black African slaves to till the soil, work the land for free. The entire United States of America was built based on the premise that they sent out an edict that saying, now that we have won the American Revolution, now that we are free from England, we need to populate the United States with white people. And in order for you to get an incentive to come to the United States of America, if you come here, you get free land. Hundreds of acres, all you got to do is sign up for it. You're going to get free land and you're going to get $150 and you're going to get an automatic right to citizenship. Yes, you are. Which means everywhere across the world, white people, white European looking folks was coming over to the United States to settle. And when they got here, they knew that all they had to do was buy some slaves. The main depot to come in was New York, right up there in the middle, Philadelphia, Virginia, all of those slave areas where they had all the slave auction blocks right there at the ports. Do you hear me? So if you get to buy some slaves when you get over here and all you got to do is sign up and you can have about 1,000 acres for free, then of course, all of the land that was given to those white people for absolutely free will be passed down by generation after generation. So from the 1500s to the 1600s to the 1700s to the 1800s, I just gave you 400 years of black slavery up until the latest 60 years that we had, the last 60 years of the oppression. Think about it. When they say that black people are not entitled to reparations, when they say that there's no such thing as systemic racism, when they say that black people have been given their equal share, when they say that black people have had every opportunity based upon the social justices that have come apart, let me tell you something. Desegregation, the Equal Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, that didn't do crap for black folks. Nothing. None of that. What did we get? What were we made equal to? We were never made equal, because let me tell you something. The trust fund white people babies of today, and I'm talking about the white people that are old, the 80-something-year-old people, those white people benefited from the original Americans that came over here and got all that free land. The Oklahomans, the Virginians, the South Carolinians, all of those New Yorkers that are saying, oh, well, this was passed down from my family for years and years and years. Yeah, because you got it for free. But guess what? You gave it to the native Indians for free. You gave it to everybody who came to the United States for free. Who gets 600,000 acres of free land? Who gets that? Who gets slave labor to work the land, build the houses, till the soil? Black people. When they give you that bill of goods that black people are lazy and that we don't have anything to offer this country, who works harder than a slave? Who has ever worked harder than a slave who is forced to work? And let me tell you something. There was no retirement plan for slaves. No, there were no old slaves. Because guess what? When the horse stops being able to work out on the field, you put it down. Do you hear me? But what you need to ensure, what those white people ensured from being able to get all of those free thousands and thousands of acres, and then having Pope Pius over there at the Vatican City saying, all y'all need to go basically get some Negroes from Africa to work all of your land, because it's by design that God wanted them to be slaves. And when you send out a Christian edict from the Vatican telling all the white people to go pillage all the people from Africa and enslave them, the only way for that enslavement to continue on for 460 years is when it's been written into the Constitution and the fabric of the United States. Okay? Now, on that note, I'm going to have to go ahead and take a break. It's 10:59. I got to go ahead and leave you for a couple of minutes with a song so we can pay these bills. And then I'm going to come back and talk to you about every reason why Mexicans, Italians, the Irish, and all these other nationalities of people are racist against black people. The number one reason that you hear that people that are from other countries, the immigrants that come over here to get free stuff without paying for it off the backs of black people who are over here paying taxes when they basically want their handouts when they cross the border. They want somebody to give them health care, education, and a dollar, and give them a place to live while they come over here illegally across the Rio Grande, walking over here for a handout. Let me tell you, they're racist because they think that the black people are lazy. They think that black people actually didn't mind being enslaved, that we have no nuts that we didn't have the balls to revolt. Well, when I come back from this break, I'm going to let you know, you Mexicans out there, all your racist people against black people, you Italian, you Irish, you German, some of you Jewish people that think black people are lazy. I'm going to explain to you very clearly. And for you black folks who are getting this education, I'm going to give you what you need to tell those good white people out there that have something to say about why black people were not able to break free from the slavery and bondage that they were under for 460 years. I'm going to tell you why. So stay tuned. Whoop, 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 whoop. I told you, I'm gonna give it all to you today. Listen, let me tell you something. I have sweat out my rap. Do you hear me? I've sweated out because I'm pissed. I'm so tired of hearing these arguments. I was looking at, all I do is read. I don't watch a lot of television. I'm always reading. I have all I do is books, baby. You can just call me Nyanza Book Moore, okay? Because that's all I'm interested in. I'm interested in history. And since I'm minored in history, I've talked a lot about these German people, and I talked to you a lot about the stormtroopers on the last 2 shows. Now, I'm bringing the stormtrooper situation to the United States of America. So, I hope you played a short song so I can go back on. So, I'm going to talk to you because you may not have heard that there was a design, okay? Let me tell you, if you're going to have a successful coup d'etat, for those of you, that means like a takeover, basically a hostile takeover, a regime change, or let's say a revolution. They were able to have the French Revolution in France because it was not written in their fabric of the French Constitution that they were not allowed to have 3 or more French people that were poured together in one conversation without having somebody from the upper class in the room. They were not told that so long as they kept their foot on their other co-oppressed people's necks and that they were secretly giving all the information to the higher ups that they would be killed. So that's exactly what happened in the United States. All these Mexican people running around here talking about, well, black people are lazy because, we just work hard. You know what? Miss me with your BS, okay? Because what they didn't realize, what the Mexicans don't know, where all the illegals coming over here for a handout didn't realize, is that there were over hundreds of years of meritorious manumission of black leaders. Yeah. You don't even know what that means, see? That's a part of what white America doesn't want to teach you when it comes to U.S. history. The reason why black people were not able to break free from the bondages of slavery is, number one, they had over 400 million square acres to do it. It wasn't like they're breaking free in Dallas. They're not breaking free in Ohio. They had to break free all over the United States all at one time. They were on the plantations in the southern states trying to break free. Let me tell you, it's very, very hard to have a coup d'etat when you got a mole in your camp that's telling the white plantation and slave drivers all of the secrets that you have when you're trying to do a revolt. So I'm going to tell you, these black leaders that are in D.C. right now, if you haven't seen the news, in the last 2 weeks, there has basically been a mass exodus of the black leaders and the black people that have been in the Biden administration because they have realized ain't nothing getting done. Ain't nothing intended to be getting done, and ain't nothing ever gonna get done. Because the Biden administration is just like the Bush administration. It's just like the Reagan administration. It's just like all the administrations prior who make money off the obliteration of black people's ability to receive wealth, economic standing. Because let me tell you something. Who cares about social justice? We don't need any more Section 8 housing. We don't need no more government cheese. What we need is economic empowerment. Do you hear me? We need something that we can leave down to our children. Kind of like the free land that was given away to all the good white people that came over here as beggars. Come over to the United States for a handout. All the freeloaders who just came over here for something they didn't have to work off the backs of black people. Okay, here we go. Oh, I forgot to open up my sparkling water. Got too crunk. Hold on. Ready?
You are on.
All right, everybody, I'm back. Have you gone? I know you ate your Wheaties, but if you forgot it, I know you got a lot of Wheaties just now. So I'm about to go ahead and give you what else you need. Now, this is exactly what you need to understand. In the United States of America, you have the white people, yellow people, brown people, and the black people. That's not the colors that I made up. That's the colors that the white folks made up. And in that order is the system of what white people have used for hundreds of years to justify keeping black people at the bottom. Okay? Now, the white people have given reparations to the yellow people and the brown people. But the black man is the most economically suppressed, depressed, and the black man is the only man that's deserving of reparations. Do you hear me? Now, how the United States can justify giving reparations to the Indians, the ones with the feathers, and not giving it to black people, but the United States, they had a treaty. Remember, I told you before the break that the United States, once the Civil War was over, they said anybody who took up arms against the Union will not be able to receive the social justice handouts from the federal government, okay? So if you were one of the January 6th insurrectionists, you're no longer going to be able to get your Section 8 checks, okay? Some of those good white people at the trailer park, they should not be able to receive any of their government benefits if they were involved in the insurrection. Now, that's the way it was after the Civil War, when Abraham Lincoln said, okay, y'all can't get no more money from us. If you were a part of the revolt, you can't get none. Well, guess what happened? It looks like the Indians were forced to sign a treaty. Now, remember, the Indians were already receiving their reparations from the federal government because the federal government felt guilty about raping and killing, blah, 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 all their people. They don't feel bad about doing that to black folks, okay? So that's the first sign of racism. So after that, after the Civil War was over, when they realized the Indians were worse racist than the white folks, you know, it's easy to learn how to be hateful. It's easy to learn how to be hateful and be against black people when the Pope tells the white people it's okay, and then when the white people tell the Indian it's okay to go ahead and enslave black folks. So when the federal government said, okay, you're not allowed to reap the benefits, and now that we have won the Civil War and you were on the wrong side helping the South, we're going to force you to sign a treaty. Indians, yes, and you are going to have to reparations to the enslaved Africans. Number one, you're going to have to give the enslaved Africans their freedom. Number two, the Indians were forced to give the Africans land. Number three, they were made to give each of those African slaves $150 US. At the time, I don't know what year that was, but I think that may be worth like 10 grand today. So when you think about it, the U.S. federal government forced the Indians who had enslaved Africans to pay them reparations out of their own pocket, but the United States did not force itself to pay reparations to the black folks that they enslaved. Do you hear me? No, they didn't. Because at first there were reparations, which was the 40 acres and a mule. Okay. Now, the Indians are still able to live off of the treaty that they made with the United States federal government that granted them all of their land, their autonomy, gave them handouts, said that they can go ahead and have casinos on there. They got billion-dollar casinos out there on these reservations. They get land that they call is sacred. And guess what? When the slaves that the Indians had got their freedom, then the Indians were still pissed and decided to tell the federal government when they changed hands. Listen, when the new president came in after Abraham Lincoln was assassinated, the replacement came in, wiped out the reparations for black people, which was the 40 acres and a mule and a check. And then the Indians said, well, we don't have to give our stuff away to the black folks either. If they're not paying the reparations, then we ain't doing it either. That was Andrew Johnson. So then the Indians didn't have to give it to them. But guess what? The reparations that were granted by the federal government to the Indians is still the same reparations that the Indians are receiving today that allows them to reap the benefits, have their own effing land, have their own effing casinos. And guess what? A lot of those black people that were enslaved on those Indian compound reservations, they were the same ones that were being mated with the Indians. So a lot of those black people ended up having the Indian blood in their veins. And let me tell you something. When the black people said, I am Indian and I should be able to receive money off of the compact between the federal government and the Indians from way back then, guess what they did then? They decided to change the rule and saying that you must be able to be able to trace the Indian blood in your veins if you're a black person trying to say that you want to get a part of your reparations. Okay, you had to be able to trace beyond the shadow of a doubt your direct lineage to the native tribe that you belong to. Guess what? In the time where all the reparations were being handed out to people that were native, a lot of white people who didn't even have a drop of Indian blood in them went ahead and signed up for the reparations. Those $5, they paid $5 to be able to sign the roll, to change their identity, to say that they were now native. They had Native American blood in them so that they could get some of the reparations and the handouts of the free land from the federal government so they could reap the benefit. Come on, Oklahoma. You got a lot of white folks out there in Oklahoma that put Native American on their birth certificate to make sure they could get some money from the reparations. But guess what? When the black Indians started doing it, then they changed the rules. Now, black people, y'all can't take. Matter of fact, y'all can't have nothing, not a single cent of a dollar of nothing of reparation. So they changed the Constitution. They revoked all the treaties. They did away with all reparations for black people. So the Indians still get their reparations. The Vietnamese got their reparations. The Jews got their reparations. The Chinese got their reparations. The Mexicans got reparations. Everybody got reparations. But white people made it a systematic method of ensuring that black people didn't get to take, whether they were enslaved by Native Americans or whether they were enslaved by the white people in the South. The only time they got reparations was for about 30 minutes until Abraham Lincoln was assassinated and then Andrew Johnson took over. And because he was a white racist Southerner that was chosen to be the vice president, it was basically like, okay, we done with this. You basically had for Reconstruction about a 5 or 6 year period where you did see some black congressmen. You did see some black senators. And then after that, once Andrew Johnson took over, it was a wrap. They gave away all of that. The Justice Department used to have offices in all of the slave states right after that to ensure that black people were treated fairly and to ensure that black people were not under the guise of slavery anymore. To make sure that even down in Texas, after Juneteenth, which is this month, that the Texans were even able to stay free. Well, what happened then? Basically, white people were like, look, we're not giving these Negroes no reparations, not now, not ever, not in the future. None of them. Because guess what? They also realized that because they had enslaved so many millions, okay? At the time of the Civil War, there were about 287,000 free black people in the northern states already. So you had 4 million black people enslaved in the southern states. So these 4 million people were the ones who basically created all of the generational wealth that would pass down for 460 years. Well, let me tell you, for all you out there, all your Mexicans, your Irish, your Germans, your Jews, your racist ASS, let me tell you something. I'm on a warpath today. This is not for the faint of heart. I'm about to tell you something about your white folks' selves. Here's what white people did. In order to stop a coup, in order to stop any rebellions from the slaves, they had to do something. Because when you take people from another continent, okay, you got the Spaniards doing it, you got the French doing it, you got the English doing it, you got all those people doing it everywhere all over the world, when it's just basically, it's open season on black folks in Africa, bring them wherever you want and let them slaves work, and then label them that they're lazy. Once they're not slaves anymore, even though you don't even have to know. Listen, white people wouldn't know how to build a brick. They wouldn't know how to put a brick together if they had to. They wouldn't. They don't know how to build roads and bridges. They don't know how to build those tributaries. Listen, D.C. was built by black people. Every place that you see, every government segment of offices that you see, all of the historical monuments. You think it was white folks up there building the Washington Monument? You think it was white folks up there building the White House? I don't think so. They just called it the White House because the black folks built it and they wanted to make sure there was no confusion. There was only going to be white folks up in here. That's what they did. They had the slave master. You know all those presidents owned slaves. Thomas Jefferson has slaves and he was mating with them. But he had to make it a way to not dilute the white population and their ability to stay on top. So what did they do? They made it to where they would say, okay, black people, you free now. But before they were free, they had to ensure that there's a way that you get 400 years. 400 years. 400 years, and then you create this narrative that black people didn't do anything to revolt. They were just so docile and so weak and so dumb and so stupid that they didn't take up arms and try to kill all them white folks, because yes, they did. Millions of black people said, I will die and kill every master up here before I become a slave and have babies for the slave master. Because anytime you have a person that will enslave another human being, is in the DNA of all white people in America, all white people in England. It is in their DNA to extract violence, to enact violence, to extract and rape and pillage everything and get it for free without working a day in their lives. That is why the system of government that we have is designed today to keep black people down, not brown people down. They're not trying to keep the yellow people down. They're just trying to keep the black people down. Because let me tell you something. Meritorious manumission is a phrase that you probably never heard of. They're not teaching that in the white schools, which is where all of us went to school after the desegregation. See, we thought it was an advantage to be desegregated and go to school with white kids, when really it wasn't. We should have just stayed in our black school so we could know exactly what we needed to learn about history, so we would be that much stronger. Meritorious manumission is basically an act. It was the Act of 1710. It was the legal act of freeing an enslaved African for good deeds, as defined by the National Public Policy, and it could be granted to an enslaved African who saved the life of a white, racist, colonial enslaver or his property. Basically, if you were a snitch on a fellow enslaved African who was planning a rebellion or an uprising or planning to cut some heads off of these white folks who were beating you, then you could basically make a profit. So if you knew that the slaves were going to run away, there was always going to be some Negro that was going to tell the massa that they trying to do an uprising, massa. Can I get my hand out, massa? Because the masses was saying, I will give you your freedom, number one. Number two, I will give you money. And number three, I might give you some land if you really help us out with a big old rebellion that was about to be an uprising. Every single uprising that occurred, let me tell you something. There were hundreds and thousands of uprisings all over the United States of racist America. Do you hear me? We hear about the Nat Turner rebellion down there in Louisiana, but let me tell you something. Nat Turner was one of the last ones. Those slaves were rebelling and cutting off the heads of those white people at every time they had an instance. It was those Negroes that were telling the massa, if you told the massa and you got meritorious manumission, then that's the same thing that we have with these black leaders right now. It's the same reason why you can have Kamala as the vice president. You can have the CBC, the Congressional Black Caucus, who's a caucus full of meritorious manumission receivers, who they can have all these votes in Congress, but they didn't decide to hold the line when it came down to the black vote. They didn't decide to protect our equal rights to vote, to make sure that black people didn't have their rights to vote taken away from them. No, because what they could have done, if you had all those black people in Congress, what they got, 40 congressmen and women that are black, the greatest number that we've ever had, and still ain't nothing got done and ain't nothing ever gonna get done, because that's by design. Because you have those Negroes up there in Biden's administration that have been told, now that we got you here, Negro, you need to just sit down here and just let us know the intelligence on any of these black leaders you got out there. That's what happened to Malcolm X. That's what happened to Martin Luther King. Because if you notice, Martin Luther King was talking that white people talk. When he was first talking about we need some equal justice, blah, 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 for black folks. But then when he started making it about when white people start getting involved on the civil rights movement, and it should have just been called the black rights movement. It wasn't no civil rights that we needed. We needed black people rights. So when Martin Luther King was preaching all this is the Poor People's Campaign. The March on Washington by Martin Luther King was called the Poor People's Campaign. So it wouldn't upset the white people. They didn't want to make it about black people when only the black people were the ones out there that were having German shepherds sicked on them. The black people were the ones that were, nobody cares about riding at the front of the bus. How is riding at the front of a bus going to help me make more money at my job? How is riding at the front of the bus going to put money into the black neighborhoods so that we can have economic empowerment? Do you hear me? When you have these black civil rights activists and leaders back in the day that were asking for stuff that wasn't going to actually give us any economic empowerment, that was by grand design by the white people. See, Martin Luther King was able to get that 1963 and 1964 Act all passed when he's sitting up there taking pictures with LBJ and doing all that shucking, shucking and jiving, because they weren't saying anything specifically with the name of black people written into it. They said equal rights for everybody. Well, black people were not the everybody, okay? So the moment that Martin Luther King has the harsh reality that even though we desegregated all these things, and even though we got Thurgood Marshall up there on the Supreme Court and doing desegregation, you know, with the Little Rock Nine, all the kind of crap, who cares about going to school with Strom Thurmond's kids? That didn't help out black folks, because let me tell you something. Whether or not the black schools in that era had dust for floors, whether or not they had to wipe off the old, used up, tattered books of the white kids and use it in their black schools, none of that was of consequence. The people were worried about the wrong thing. In the civil rights movement, we didn't need civil rights. We needed economic rights. We needed black economic reparations. They should have been talking about that. But guess what? The moment that you notice that Martin Luther King changed his pitch, if you look at some of the later speeches of Martin Luther King and the later writings and the later interviews and the later quotes that you find from him, you'll see that he changed his tune. He started realizing that he needed to be more of the Malcolm X-ness and less about these white folks and all about the poor people, because black people were the poorest of all the poor people. You know, when he started making it about everybody else and not about what actually mattered and started talking about give us some reparations, give us what we are due since we built this country, that's when the white man assassinated him. See, Martin Luther King Jr. was not a threat until he started talking about economic empowerment of black people. Because the only way for white people to be successful is on the backs of black folks. You do know that now. They can only remain at the top of the elite class that they have empowered themselves to be is so long as they are given all of the positions in government. White people run every single industry in the United States of America. From the government, from the federal government, the state government, the county government, to the local city governments. Black people run nothing. Latinos, you ain't running nothing but your mouths. You don't get any, listen, you're not getting anything either. And when the Mexican people are out there talking about, I can't believe that the black people, Mexican people, we fight for our rights. We wouldn't have let ourselves become slaves. Well, you probably didn't have meritorious manumission, Mexicans, because you came over here for a free handout, Mexicans, and you're still trying to come across the border every day for free, trying to get a free handout. Yes, you are. You're not trying to sign up for no citizenship. You're not trying to learn English. Heck, you got all these Texas schools out here trying to do free ESL, English as a second language, making extra efforts to try to teach y'all's kids English when your parents not even paying tax dollars. The black folks are paying tax dollars and living in Section 8 housing. Guess what? We don't need social justice anymore. Black people have been taxed with this theory that we need government housing, that we need reparations as far as social justice. We don't need social justice. You can't hand down a Section 8 apartment to your kid. You can't hand down any free government cheese to your grandkids. We need some of that free land that was given to the Indians. Some of that free land that was given to all those white people 460 years ago for free to have them settle this country on the backs of black people. We need you to carve out some of that native territory that you think the Indians are able to protect so easily based on a treaty from over hundreds of years ago. We need some of that money. We need some of that land. We don't need any more welfare. We need to be well funded. When we talk about the meritorious manumission, black leaders have been running to prioritize their own personal ambition and their rugged individualism. They are basically on the necks of other black people trying to make sure once they got their job as the congressman, once they got their job as the congresswoman, they got their security detail, they got their office in D.C., they're wearing their Louboutin, click-clacking across the halls of Congress, talking about, I'm so-and-so, I'm Congresswoman this, I'm Congressman that. Well, you know what? Let me tell you something with your meritorious self. all the meritorious manumissions that were given out back then in the 1700s, about that meritorious manumission of 1710, all the states, Virginia, North Carolina, all the southern states, they had their own meritorious manumission to make sure that in every single one of those slave states, they gave all the black people positions and handouts and freedom and offices, and they were able to do business. I mean, prime example, in Aruba, I'm saying Aruba because that's where the Queen over there in England is celebrating the colonization of Aruba and all these black countries where she's been able to keep her bouffant coiffed very well on the backs of those black people in Aruba. Because when I was in Aruba talking to the native Aruban black people, and they were telling us when we were flying in, my husband and I, that all of these fancy mansions that I was like, ooh, are the people in Aruba just rich, rich, rich? Where are all these multi-million-dollar mansions in the cliffs and on these border areas, on these beaches? Who lives here? Oh, they said Aruba had a big land grab for all these celebrities. You know, a lot of the people came over from England to just go ahead and build some houses out here. I was like, oh, they did. I said, well, are there any black people there? They said, well, you know, it's low. They've stopped it now. They're not letting any more people who are not citizens buy homes here. And I was thinking, So when I went out into the city in Aruba and I got a black cab driver on purpose, and I'm sitting in the back seat with my husband, I said, look, when I'm out here in the main area, in the main strip where everybody's doing all the shopping and everybody's wearing all these Bermuda shorts and crap, like all the white boys out there in those dorky looking shorts that have no swag, and I see all the black people working as the dishwashers and stuff, and I was like, hold on now. How is it that Whitey is running all of Aruba? And I talked to the black man who was driving the cab, and I said, let me ask you something, sir. I don't mean to be offended because I'm a black American, so I understand we come from slaves over there. Now, y'all are still enslaved over here. Why are all the white people running Aruba when Aruba is 95% black? Where they do that at? I said, now, have y'all tried to revolt or come up, or what have y'all done? I mean, y'all don't have a vote at Parliament. He said, no. He said, I'm glad that you asked that. He said, because you know what? We've been trying to revolt against that bee in England for a long time. And we have not had any success because there's always some coon. And for those of you who don't understand what I'm talking about, there's always some Clarence Thomas where the meritorious manumission has been able to get a black person who's saved by the people to run for office, to represent the Rubens. And what do? They get up there. They don't do nothing they're supposed to do. And they thwart every single policy prospect that we submit to the government about why we need Arubans to be free. I said, let me tell you something. You don't need white folks to run your country. I said, the problem is what white people do. And this is what I said to him. I said, white people have no problem with using violence as a means to take back power, or violence as a means to assert power over people to where they have no rights to assert their power over. They will slice. I said, look at Hitler in Germany. Look at the French Revolution. The revolutionaries had to go take all the aristocrats out there from Versailles and take them to the guillotine to chop their heads off, to say, ain't no more of y'all gonna rule us like this. The American Revolution was based off of killing the people that came over here. Y'all remember the Boston Tea Party? Remember, the British are coming, the British are coming, the British are coming. Well, they had to be ready with bayonets. They had to be ready in the secret encampments to make sure that when the British soldiers came over to the United States to go ahead and get their cash influx, to go basically pick up their rent check from the Americas, they were met with bayonets and bombs and billy clubs, okay? They basically used violence as a means to say, we are revolting. Hitler sent the stormtroopers out there to slice off the heads and basically assassinate all the people in the administrator's opposition party. Power is only taken with violence, okay? So when you have white Americans and white people historically use the methods of meritorious manumission when it comes to telling the black folks, if you can go ahead and be a spy and let us know when these Negroes are trying to revolt, and let us know when they're trying to rebel, and let us know when the people that are enslaved by you, like you, You know, because black people, the people that were given the benefit of meritorious manumission, once they got their freedom, those Negroes enslaved other black people. Yes, they did. They got their own slaves and they were able to live with the white people, okay? Right around them with a badge of citizenship saying, I'm free. I own slaves too, just like those Indians, those Indians did when they were able to say to the white Southern generals, I'm free, I'm civilized because I own some Negroes, all right? Now, if the black people had it written into the Constitution and into a federal act in 1710, saying that if you tell us about any of these, you can get your freedom, then you have to really have the mindset that it's not about the whole. Because that was just one front that white people used to keep black people enslaved. The other front that they used was a massacre of violence like you would have never seen before, inflicted on any of the people that were told on, that were trying to do these revolts. Let me tell you something. The slavery uprisings in the United States, the Southern Poverty Law Center back in 2018 came up and listed the 5 most significant uprisings by enslaved people in U.S. history. All right. You know, George Washington, Mr. Colonizer, enslaved hundreds of black folks. He even said during the revolutionary conflict with Britain that should the British tyranny not be fought, Americans risked turning, quote, as tame and abject slaves as the blacks we rule over with such arbitrary sway. Do you hear me? George Washington says we don't need to be like these Negroes. We got to make sure that we take up arms. Black people out there, you better be listening to me. If you listened to my show last week or the week before, then you knew I was talking a lot about how it was that Adolf Hitler was able to take over in a democratic regime. Germany was a democracy just like the United States. They had 2 ruling parties and then the subsidiary parties. Basically, the Democrats, the Republicans, and the subsidiary parties were the Green Party, the Libertarians, and the Independents. When Adolf Hitler came into power, he did it by violence. He used the stormtroopers to go in and shoot people. The stormtroopers were never worried about the acts of violence that they committed on the people because they knew that Adolf Hitler had their back and he would save them from being able to be brought up on charges. They would not be convicted. They would be able to kill at will in order to take over. That's exactly what white folks did here in the United States. They needed to kill all the British to stop the British from preventing them from having their American Revolution independence. And the same way all of these other tyrannous regimes are able to murder and kill and rape and pillage, that's what they've been doing for black people. Well, guess what, black folks? Let me tell you something. The stormtroopers of Germany are the white Aryan nation racist Ku Klux Klan members in the United States of America today. The stormtroopers are here. The stormtroopers are going into these schools and slaughtering people, going into grocery stores, slaughtering people, going with the protection of the United States federal government because they are allowing felons to buy AR-15s. If you are on the do not fly list for the federal government, if you are a domestic terrorist, the Republicans and the GOP stormtroopers have ensured your right to still be able to buy a weapon of mass destruction, mass murder destruction. They have made it in the rules. The United States Constitution will protect the white people that want to go out and shoot up a whole bunch of people. They want to make sure that that Second Amendment protects the stormtroopers so that when they decide or when they see any instance of black people rising up and being able to use the same means. Let me tell you something. Now, there's 2 kinds of black people. All right. There are the black people that would either want to say, I want to benefit from meritorious manumission, and I'm going to tell on all these Negroes because I really just want to live with the white folks. So I'm going to tell everything I need to tell to get all these black people. Y'all not going to be able to revolt because I want to be with the white people. And what y'all doing over there is not going to work anyway. And that was in 1710s. Now, when you fast forward to Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, and the Black Panther movement and the Hope, whatever. Well, Martin and Malcolm ended up in the same place. shot down. So if you were of the Malcolm sect, you were for economic empowerment and black people trying to help themselves. See, instead of you all out there running around buying all your designer this, designer that, trying to live with the white folks, trying to make sure you get to work in white corporate America, trying to make sure you get all the white people that, you need to be worried about how to take care of your darn self. You need to stop spending your money on stuff that doesn't matter. You need to start getting debt free, because since you already know that you're not going to get any reparations, you're not going to get any economic empowerment. You're not going to get your 40 acres and a mule. It's been written in the Constitution, even at the state levels, to make sure you don't get a handout, to make sure that you stay at the bottom class. The Indians are not at the bottom class, baby. They got their own land. They got their own casino. They're able to hand out generational wealth with billions and billions and billions of dollars coming from those casinos, okay? The white people got their free hundreds and thousands of free acres from the United States government, and they're able to hand down that generational wealth. You see what happened to Black Wall Street? When black people start taking over their economics, when black people start relying on other black people, when black people start going ahead and patriating black businesses, when they start going to black private schools, when they start hiring black, buying black, being black, let me tell you what that does. That gives you the type of independence that white people would be scared about. Because let me tell you, white people gain their wealth in two ways. They have their own demographic. White people buy from white people, and black people buy from white people. Mexicans, they have their own demographic. They make their money off Mexican people and black people. You don't believe me? Black people are the only ones, the only ethnic group in the United States to where we don't keep our dollars circulating, running around the black community. Our dollars circulate our black community 0 times. Let me tell you something. The breakdown is this. In the Jewish community, a Jewish dollar will make 30 circles around the Jewish community with their businesses, their schools, and their 30 rotations that dollar will travel before it leaves Jewish hands and goes into the white banks. Okay? Mexicans, it goes around 6 times before a Mexican dollar goes to the white people. The black dollar doesn't make it around 1 time. Okay? So black people, you are doing yourselves a disservice when you're taking your own economic value out of black businesses. When you're not going to get the reparations, then it's up to you yourselves to do things for your own community. Now, when I'm talking about the violence that's necessary, here's the problem. The violence was inflicted upon black people to such a level to where you had the white man who was responsible for capturing Nat Turner during the Nat Turner Rebellion. On his tombstone, he had it put, and in his obituary, it was placed in the newspaper that he was the one responsible for skinning Nat Turner alive after the slave rebellion. Because see, Nat Turner was letting the people know that they needed to revolt. And if you have revolts all across the country, where black people were willing to take up arms, then you have to wonder, what benefit is it to the white people to protect the Second Amendment? The benefit is to make sure the stormtroopers can keep black folks in their places. Do you hear me? The white people are the ones out there shooting up everybody, but they want you to be afraid of black urban violence. I'm sorry. Black people are killing people for territory and drugs, or somebody messing with somebody's woman. White folks are going out there killing at will. White folks are the ones out there with the AR-15s. They're the ones shopping at the Walmart every day for everything they need. So when you think about it, if you don't understand the way that everything is designed in the United States for black people to not be able to have anything, they can't give black people economic empowerment. We have to take it for ourselves. Okay? Now, when you think about the revolts, let's go back. I told you about the Meritorious Manumission Act of 1710. Well, in 1712, baby, there was a slave revolt in New York. Now, the New York Revolt of 1712, that was one of two of the bloodiest uprisings by enslaved people in U.S. history. I kind of wish I was there. 23 enslaved Africans met at the East River before setting nearby homes ablaze. The white homeowners were trying to escape, along with those coming to put out the fires. They were all attacked. 9 white people were killed and 6 were injured before the uprising was stopped. As many as 6 of those caught died by suicide. Around 70 enslaved Africans in total were arrested and imprisoned. Almost 24 were convicted and executed, including one pregnant woman, with most of those who were put to death were burned alive. Following that revolt, that's when they had more of those 1741 revolts that came out. That, listen, New Yorkers was still pissed. More than 100 enslaved people were arrested and 13 were burned at the stake, while the hangings were carried out against 17 black men, 2 white women, and 2 white men over a slave revolt 30 years later in 1741. The slave market on Wall Street, you know the Wall Street that we know of today, was dismantled in 1762. After being illegal and common since 1600s, slavery was finally made illegal in New York State in 1827. You had the Stono Rebellion of a southern plantation that came in 1739, where the slave owners in South Carolina were fighting smallpox epidemic. On September 9th, 20 enslaved people gathered before traveling to a firearms store. They went down to the Walmart, y'all, in 1739. They shot the depot's owner. They murdered him. They stole the guns, and they had their rebels. They marched to the St. Paul Parish, and they were heading for Florida and their anticipated freedom. They burned down the homes and burned down all the belongings of their enslavers and their families. They killed the men, the women, and the children. Let me tell you something. Ultimately, a white militia countered the marchers, and they killed them, and they decapitated the enslaved men, and they crushed the rebellion. They took all of those heads and hung them on stakes so that everybody out there could see and be in fear. Back in 1800, they had Gabriel Prosser's conspiracy. There was a plot to capture the Capitol Square in Richmond, Virginia, and hold Governor James Monroe hostage that was hatched by an enslaved blacksmith named Gabriel Prosser. His brother Solomon and a few enslaved people, they came down and they had a conspiracy that was inspired by the Haitian Revolution around the turn of the 19th century. Let me tell you something. In this one, 65 enslaved men were arrested and tried, with ensuing testimonies heard by 5 justices without a jury. More than 24 enslaved people were hanged. Others were convicted and sold out of the state. Some were pardoned. Those were the people who, under meritorious manumission, just told on everybody that they could. 2 of the enslaved people who told enslavers about the plot, they got their freedom. In 1811, they had the Andrews Rebellion, named after Colonel Manuel Andrew, the owner of the plantation where the revolt began between January the 8th and the 10th on the eastern bank of the Mississippi River, about 30 miles north of New Orleans. Throughout that area, the black population vastly outnumbered those who were white. Now listen, in Mississippi, South Carolina, all those places, the black folks outnumbered the white folks, and the black folks had had enough. They were trying to kill up all the white people. They had about 500 black folks that gathered up and started marching, and they were marching down into New Orleans, slaying the white people at every turn. Let me tell you something, all you Mexicans and you Jewish and your people out there that thought that black people just liked to be enslaved and they couldn't free themselves. They were chopping off the heads of the white people, but the white people had to write it in the Constitution to make sure that they could give the freedom to the black folks that told on the other people. Come on now. Listen, Mexico, you lost out to Texas, so stop trying to act like you so big and bad and that you would never be taken over, because you were. You were taken over by the white people, just like the black people were. I'm so tired of these folks trying to act like, that they didn't know nothing about the 1831-19 Nat Turner Rebellion. In the 18th and 19th centuries, black people have long been trying to fight for their freedom and trying to take these white folks' heads off and try to decapitate them. But what white people use is violence by any means necessary. They will write it into the laws not to give black people anything. Because guess what? Even without reparations, even without any land, even without any benefits, you had Black Wall Street, you had Harlem, you had areas in the United States where black people were taken over and able to be successful so long as they kept their black dollars in the black community. I'm gonna go ahead and cut to a commercial real quick, and then I'll be right back. Boom! Yeah, you know what? I have heard for the last, listen, there are a whole lot of racist people out there that try to, oh, you know, black people, they deserve what they get. They didn't have enough nerve to fight for their own. How can you have all those people enslaved for 400 years? You should have been able to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Well, when you have meritorious manumission and you got your Clarence Thomases, who is the chief Negro, has been the best benefactor and the chief benefactor of meritorious manumission, married to a white woman who had the nerve to come out there and say he don't have to worry about no ethics because under the Supreme Court, they don't have any ethics rules for those justices. And his white girl wife that he married can go ahead and say that the insurrection was valid and that the new president was not really the new president in Biden, and nothing's going to happen because that's the most meritorious manumission benefit that we have ever seen by the Negro Uncle Tom, Clarence Thomas, on the Supreme Court. Did you hear me? With Clarence Thomas, we can all be ensured that the white people have done exactly what they set out to do, making sure they have the Negro coon in the right places to make sure that black people never get the stuff that they're fighting for. Because when you have over 40 people, go ahead and look it up, Sherelle. How many black people are sitting, how many black people are in the U.S. Congress in the United States today, based on this last election or whatever they got going on in all these places? If you see that you have all these black people in Congress and ain't nothing getting done and ain't nothing changed, ain't nothing been done since the Civil Rights Act of 1963 and the Voting Rights Act of 1964, then basically if they're able to roll back all of the things that black people were given, then it's by design that they only select those. See, I wasn't meant to win Congress because I talk too much and I wasn't going to let them white people run over the black folks no more.
28 states have a black representative.
Well, 28 states got a black rep, so that's 28 black people in Congress, and we have the largest congressional delegation, but for some reason, none of those black people thought it was a good idea to band together and block everything that Biden was going to send down the pike unless he dealt with voting rights first and unless he dealt with making sure that black people got reparations in some shape, form, or fashion. Because if you looked at the news this week, California is poised to give black Californians reparation because after after a review was done, a professional study was done by the people in California, they realized that California should pay reparations to African Americans.
30 seconds.
Okay, so y'all gonna have to listen in there and get some more knowledge. We need to all move to Cali. I got family out there right now. Right up there in Compton. Hey, Anjanette. Okay, we back on. Back on. Okay, I'm back, everybody. So, if you were listening to what I said initially in this whole time I've been talking to y'all, black people, you need to speak up. You need to keep your black dollars in the black communities because guess what? If you didn't believe what I was saying, the state of California just came out yesterday and released a 500-page report detailing the state's role in perpetuating historic discrimination against black folks. I'm calling them native blacks, even though they call them African Americans in this article. On Wednesday, they explained that the harm suffered by descendants of enslaved people long after slavery was abolished in the 19th century, and citing discriminatory laws and practices in housing, education, employment, and the legal system. Listen, quote, from colonial times forward, governments at all levels adopted and enshrined white supremacy beliefs and passed laws in order to maintain slavery, a system of dehumanization and exploitation that sold the life, labor, liberty, and intellect of people of African descent. That's what the California Task Force legislature reported. The task force was formed in California in 2020. See, that's what you have when you have Gavin Newsom. When you have a governor that understands that white people have benefited astronomically off the enslavement, the entrapment, and the economic disenfranchisement of black people, then they understand that, quote, the effects of slavery continue to be embedded in American society today and have never been sufficiently remedied. The governments of the United States and the state of California have never apologized to or compensated African Americans for these harms. Do you hear me? Now, if the state of California did a 500-page report and proved what we already knew was true, now what I want to know is why Biden Joseph Biden hasn't been able to do that same kind of study. If they started this study back in 2020, and now here we are in 2022, and it didn't take them long to realize, okay, well, this is what we need to give them something. Then all they really need to do, and let me just put it plainly to you, it's not rocket science, okay? If you're giving away 100,000, if you're giving away, the United States gave away 250 million free acres of land in the first 2 years when they opened up the borders. The reason why they say we are a country of immigrants is because they asked every immigrant across the world to come over here and enslave black people and get free labor, free land, and free money to entice people to come over here. They wrote in the Constitution, when it says we the people, the three men that actually wrote the Constitution, those parts of the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, the first 12 declarations was written for white people, with white people in mind. The black people are addressed in the United States Constitution when it says debtors. Debtors are black people. They use another word, property is black people. So they don't say black, but they used that specific term to delineate the black slaves from being able to benefit from the United States Constitution. That's what they wanted to happen. They just basically wanted to say, all of this good freedom is for the white people, and we don't want to confuse you all. But we want to make it very clear. There is a reason why the framers wrote it the way they wrote it. There is a reason why in Dred Scott, Plessy v. Ferguson, all those cases, the Supreme Court that was all racist that had slaves anyway. The Supreme Court justices had slaves, okay? So now they have a resident coon in Justice Clarence Thomas up there, who's the benefactor of meritorious manumission up there trying to say, well, you know what? I don't believe we need anything because I pulled myself up by my own bootstraps. Yeah, you did. On meritorious manumission, you used any means necessary to keep black folks down and just basically do everything for yourself. When you're thinking about a black man's ability to succeed, don't be in doubt. Let me tell you something. Black people are the only people in this country that have a proven work ethic. Nobody works harder than a slave. The problem is black people also have religion. White people, white pastors, stemming down from the Pope Pius, coming down and telling everybody you need some slaves from Africa. They're not humans anyway. God made them to be slaves. That's what's in the Bible. The Bible says enslave the black folks. So what did the white people over here? They use the Bible as a means of telling black people, this is just your station in life. You should not try to revolt against us and try to cut our heads off. Even though we're using other slaves to enslave you, even though we're chopping off your heads, even though we're putting your heads on pikes, we're still Christians. But God wanted you to be in this downtrodden position for the rest of your life, and you put here on the earth to be slaves. Well, when you're telling black people that, then the other people in the other countries are looking at black people like, well, y'all ain't nothing. Y'all don't deserve anything. If y'all need to take your power, I'll be like, I'll be taking my power. Shut up. Mexicans, shut up. Take several seats, first of all. You still coming over here to the United States begging, okay? Immigrants are different from black people. Black people are natives to this country because the original man is the black man, which means the black man is the original first son of God. God created the black man in his image, and you all know that Jesus was black. Though, let me tell you something about all of this, because what do we have? Anytime you talk about black wokeness, white people get scared. Anytime you talk about black people are the chosen people, the Jewish people get scared. Anytime you talk about black civil liberties and black liberation and what the black people were able to do, the white people want to shut you up. The Jewish people want to shut you up. You need to go ahead and claim your inheritance, black people, and don't let all these other people who could only be at their station in this world by the backs of black people, by committing the atrocities which God will make them all atone for. Because let me tell you something about black folks. When you are God's chosen people, and when you are the original son of God, when you are the firstborn son, when you are the Adam of the earth, the black man is the Adam of the earth. The black man is Jesus. When you have that history with God, then you already know that God is going to take care of black folks. You don't need to worry about anything. But at the same time, God is a God of wrath. So black people, use what the white people have to their benefit, which is their Second Amendment rights. Go out there and buy your AR-15s, because we all know that right now they don't have a rule where they can actually write that you can't be black and buy a gun. So go ahead and buy all the guns you need, because guess what? What white people have shown us is they are the most violent people on earth. White people created racism. White people are the reason for the Holocaust. White people created slavery. The white popes over there enhanced slavery and used God as a tool, as a means to destroy the black man. White people are creators of the violence necessary to keep people downtrodden, to take away the rights that they have that they were given by God. White people are the catalysts and the capitalists of violence. They have shown us how to spray bullets and just mow down people. They have shown us that their job is only to kill, steal, and destroy, and plummet and destroy all of the country, and to take all of the resources that they were never entitled to. Because remember, De Beers owns all the diamond mines in Africa. Africa is the wealthiest country, the wealthiest continent on earth by design. The original man came from Africa. So if God designed for the original man, Adam, to have all that he needed, all of the gold, all of the silver, all of the diamonds, the iron ore, the oil, everything comes out of Africa. Africa is the wealthiest continent naturally, because God intended it that way. So when white people realized that they were not the chosen people, when white people realized that the black man was the original man, when white people realized that Adam and Jesus were probably black, they realized if they told the black people that wasn't true, and they destroyed their ability to think of themselves as the chosen people, then it would be that much easier to take over their continent. Only in Africa can you have the tiny country of South Africa surrounded by all of the black countries on the continent of Africa, and have white people enslave black people right in the middle and keep them under the rule of apartheid for hundreds of years. Do you hear me? White people know ain't nothing out there in Europe. Don't nobody want to go to Australia and dig for nothing. Y'all want to dig in Africa where everything is. It's the land of milk and honey. So black people out there, listen to me. You are native more than these Indians. The Indians got their reparations. They enslaved black folks. Black people here that were benefited from meritorious manumission, they enslaved black folks. The Indians fought on the side of the South. The reparations that black people were entitled to, the white people wrote out. They made sure that black people would turn on each other, and they used Jesus as a way to say, black people, you should just go ahead and forgive your slave owners. Just go ahead and be out there. You should just go ahead and fend for yourself. They convinced Martin Luther King that he should just be concerned about social equality instead of economic equality. Don't be fooled. When you're out here thinking about what you need to do, stop buying up all the stuff that these people in the media make you think you need to spend your money on. You need to be concerned about the money going into HBCUs. You need to be going to the black neighborhoods, because guess what? If the black dollar doesn't stay in the black neighborhood, there's no black economic empowerment. I don't see Jewish people saying it's too Jewish to be only going to Jewish stores. I don't see Mexican people saying it's too Mexican to just go down on the Saturdays and Sundays, because you know they have all their little markets and stuff out there where they only speak in Spanish. They don't have a problem just buying from Mexicans. Only black people have a problem with saying, well, it's just too many black people. We don't want to make it seem like we're only buying from black. The heck you don't. You better get your wits about you, because guess what? When you see that these racist white folks ain't here to do anything for black people and they're only meant to keep you down, if the United States government can drop bombs on black people in a black neighborhood in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and destroy Black Wall Street, when you have black people buying from black doctors healing black kids, black churches teaching that rights up to black folks, when you see that Tulsa had to be destroyed by those racist white people down the street in the trailer park that was mad at all the doctors and lawyers and veterinarians and business owners, and out there black folks becoming millionaires right there in Black Wall Street, if they're dropping bombs and going in and lynching all of those people in Tulsa, and then only in 2018, 19, 20, and 2021 and 2022, they still won't pass the anti-lynching bill, then that lets you know something. They want to keep on lynching. They don't want to stop the white folks that are crazy from buying AR-15s. They don't want to stop them from lynching black folks. They don't want to do anti-lynching. They don't want to do anti-guns, anti-felonies getting guns, anti-people on the terrorist list getting guns. They want to make sure that their stormtroopers are armed and ready to be able to handle any type of white revolution that they need to keep their fists and shoes on the necks of black people. So black people out there, go ahead and give some power to the people. And I ain't talking about social power. Who cares if you got Section 8 housing? You can't pass that down. What you need is your land. We want the 40 acres. F the mule. Give us a horse. Bye, everybody. I hope you enjoyed that. I mean, if you're not going to be able to get it from the black folks in politics about exactly what you need, we don't need any more of these politicians represent black people talking about we need equality. Equal with what? We don't need more equality. We need money. We need things that are going to help our black economics, because that's what everyone else got. Listen, if you're playing a Monopoly game, you start off with cash. You start off with something to join the game. White people start off with 250 million free acres. Indians started off with 100 million acres. And they got some teepees and some casinos and some horses. Mexicans come over here by the droves. They got hundreds of thousands of Mexicans coming over here illegally saying, bump your laws. We want a handout. They just want to get free stuff. Mexican people got to be some of the laziest people I ever seen on the earth, if you want to tell the truth, because they over here carpet bagging their butts over here and trying to sleep at the border, trying to force the United States to give them some health care at the border, food and water, shelter, and a free education at the border. And if they were here doing COVID, they got free COVID vaccines at the border. Now, guess what? All that free stuff is being paid for by black people who are paying taxes. So the Mexicans are coming over here lazy, trying to get a free handout. The same way everybody else did when they came to America to get their free handouts. Black people are the only ones who are labeled with being a succubus that just want free stuff. I'm sorry, nothing in the United States that is given to black people under the social construct of this America is free, because black people paid for it for 460 years of payments. So they should be able to make a withdrawal on all of the benefits. Okay? Who's the laziest? The white people. You want to get something for nothing. You don't, listen, all of this talk, all of this chatter, all this whatever. You need to rise up like the Haitians did, black people. Arm yourselves with knowledge and weapons, because you got the knowledge. Don't be afraid to go shoot some of these folks, because guess what? I'm calling on all of the gangsters. The gangsters, you know, the brothers out there that don't mind just laying out a few people over a block. Those gangsters, we need our black gangsters to be our black stormtroopers, okay? When the time comes, there will be a time in the United States. We saw it with the January 6th insurrection, where those crazy white folks, and the one brother that you saw that was caught up in there with that bull crap, with those crazy white folks, when they did a run on the Capitol, that just lets you know how unafraid they are. They knew full well that the government was not going to take up arms against white people. They don't shoot themselves. They only take up arms against black people. So knowing that, and knowing that we saw that none of those people were charged with treason. See, insurrection is an easy word to use It's better than using treason, because treason means it's an actual rule in the Constitution that you should be hanged. You know, so if you commit treason and do something that's going to cause this country to lose its independence, and that you want to just basically do a coup d'etat and take over the government, then you can be hanged. You can be executed, all right, by the federal government. Now, if you call it an insurrection, it doesn't have the same weight as treason, you know. So if you saw the treasonous white people try to take over the government to allow Hitler to remain the president of the United States, then that basically should tell you that from the time of the January 6th insurrection up until the next presidential election, there will be another uprising. You don't believe me? Mark my words. There will be yet another revolt, because Marjorie Taylor Greene is still talking that dumb stuff and the people are still listening to her. QAnon and 4chan is still there. You know, they just had a shooting that I didn't feel like there was a need to talk about it. There's a shooting at a hospital out there in California. And look, they can shoot all over the country. It's not going to change gun control. They're not going to control what they need. They're not going to control their ability to inflict violence on black people when the time is right. They have their stormtroopers, and I really hope that black people go weaponize yourselves. You got the knowledge. Y'all got more degrees than thermometers. You're always talking about how educated you are at these white folks' schools. I'm educated by the white folks too. I'm also educated by the HBCU. But my thing is this: my education can only get me so far in a war. So if there's a war on black people, you better have your defense mechanisms. You better be thinking about the Nat Turners of the world. You better be going ahead and looking at some of those slave rebellions and what they needed to do. You better be going and attending some of these black churches where the black preachers are preaching the real talk and not the fake talk. We don't need any more social handouts from the federal effing government. We don't need any more CUNY homes. We don't need any more Cabrini Greens. We don't need any more project housing. We don't need none of that. We don't need none of that free crap that will not allow us to be empowered. Like I said, you can't hand down your apartment in the Section 8 housing to nobody. Okay? That's nothing that you can pass down generationally. That doesn't gain you generational wealth. Monthly handouts. We don't need that. Stop buying stuff that you don't need and you won't need a handout. Start going, hoard your money. Hoard your cash. You know what? I said I was going to be debt free at 50. Boom, I don't have no debts. Now, I do owe my student loan because lying-ass Biden said that he was going to go ahead and erase the student loan debt. But really, he wasn't going to be able to do that, because when he did the math and did the data, he realized more black women owe student loan debt than any other demographic. Do you hear me? Black women have most of the student loan debt from all these more degrees and thermometers that we got, all these doctorates, all these masters, all these PhDs, all these veterans pharmacy degrees, all these law degrees. Those are the student loan debts. So Biden's like, it doesn't benefit him to wipe out those debts. So he's just going to go ahead and stick to the for-pay colleges. He's wiping out college debt that was for pay, because that helps white people. Black people were not attending those for-pay colleges. Trump University, Corinthian University, all these fake schools that you can't get real degrees from. That's not the kind of degrees black people need. Black people need real degrees because we're at the bottom. So we can't get a fake degree. So if you're wiping out college debt for those people, Biden, I need you to go sit down somewhere, because that ain't what you said you were going to do. You said you were going to wipe it off across the board, but you realize too many black people owe the debt. So you're not going to wipe it out. But you'll go ahead and give all of our COVID money over to the Ukrainians to help with a war in a foreign land where we have no say in the outcome, and they're not even a part of NATO. You can find the money for that. Come on now. Now I gave you the Black Woke Day. You've heard it here. I hope that you have been enlightened and empowered by today's show. I want you to stay black. I want you to be, listen, the new hashtag is forget Black Lives Matter. That ain't what we need. You just need to think black. Just think black. That's all you gotta do. You think black. You're black every day when you look in the mirror. Every day you see yourself as black. White people see you as black. Mexicans, the Jews, the Indians, whatever, they all see you as black. And they see you at the bottom. And they see that in 460 years, no one that has trotted you down to the lower bowels of the socioeconomic platform. You have no rights. You have no equality. Who are you going to be equal with? Equal to what? You ain't never been equal. You still ain't equal. The only thing you can do is hoard your money and give it to other black folks. You know why? You need to go ahead and patronize some of these black stores. Patronize some of these black professionals. So guess what? Black people are the smartest people. Do you know that? If you can build an entire country without a blueprint, you must be smart. If you can follow the design plans in English, and you're a black African that doesn't speak the native language, but you can still figure out how to build a building. You must have inherent intelligence that's not masked by anybody else. If you're building pyramids over there, things that you still see today, but you got white people's buildings crumbling that they built by, listen, after slavery was over, the buildings that you see that were built by white folks, they're all crumbling down. They can be taken over by a hurricane or a tornado or a strong wind. Pyramids are still standing. Come on now. I'm just trying to tell you. I'm trying to enlighten you and waking you up. You know, there's a whole lot to say about black folks, about the laziness, and it just ain't true. The black man is the original man. You heard it here. Jesus was black. Adam was black. Black people are God's chosen people, period. Sorry, Jews, you're not it. You can't be God's chosen people when you kill Jesus. Come on now. Come on now. Where can you assassinate the prince and then be the chosen? Now, that's got to be some bull malarkey that the Jewish people wanted us all to believe so they could thwart anti-Semitism, because that's what they needed to do to save themselves from the Nazis. Well, guess what? They need to stop that, because when the ACLU goes and says it's anti-Semitic to say that the Jews are not the chosen people, I mean, I think that's just crazy talk. I think that's the same way that they're able to keep people down that know that they are the chosen, because black people are the original chosen people. That's all I have to say about that, y'all. Hope you enjoyed the show today. Bye-bye. Think black. Oh, but do a thumbnail first. Okay.
Put your headphones on?
Yep.
We're going to do Instagram first.
I'm on Instagram, straight flexing. All right.
Let me know when you're ready.
Okay, I'm ready. Which one? This first?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Hold it.